Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I am here with you today with Tom Stearns from Benchmark Mortgage, and we're going to talk today a little bit about VA home loans, some of the reasons why you want to use them, and some of the things that you can expect during the home buying process. Hi Tom, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. So tell us a little bit about what you do and why VA loans and helping first responders mean so much to you.
First and foremost, I mean, working with veterans and first responders, specifically our veterans, it's just an honor for me to be able to serve those folks that have served us and served our country. It's a huge part of my career to do that and be able to honor them by what they've done for us. And frankly, in my opinion, there's no other happier borrower than a veteran when they get a home, because their home is their castle.
Absolutely.
And you hear that time and time again from those veterans that, hey, we just want a home, because they're constantly on the move or going from base to base, and depending on when they've deployed or if they're in active duty, that is something that is huge for them, is to come home and boots on the ground in a home. Right.
Yeah. It's for most of them, it's the first opportunity to grow roots.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And what we see is that so many veterans don't know what their benefits are. That is probably one of the biggest things that we deal with, is that most veterans don't know what their benefits are.
And with that in mind, okay, so school me. What are their benefits? For somebody who's served the military, who's eligible for the VA loan, and what benefits, why should they use it? What benefit does it have?
Huge benefits. So one, they don't have to come up with a down payment, right? Which sometimes can become a stigma on the loan product with different real estate agents, that they don't want to accept an offer because they don't believe they have any skin in the game.
Right.
Right.
We come across it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Horrible. Because the skin in the game was their life they put on the line for us.
Absolutely.
So they're free. To that fact, 29% of veterans last year statistically put more money down, up to 20% down.
Wow.
Right. Statistically, the average veteran has a 718 FICO score.
So better than the average Joe.
Better than average Joe, almost better than the average conventional borrower. And their job time is greater than the average person as well, because typically when they go to work or go to that mission, they're there. Right.
Right. They have the loyalty.
Yes. And 28% of them, as of last year, statistically all have bachelor's degrees. So we have education, we have money, we have stability and loyalty. Hello. Right. Why wouldn't we use their loan? A fantastic borrower. Right. So most of those borrowers, to go back, most of those veterans don't know that, hey, I can get into a home, zero down. For those folks that, as far as PMI or mortgage insurance, they're not paying any mortgage insurance. And then again, from a real estate standpoint or a building standpoint, veterans don't pay student loans.
Right.
Right. So now you have no PMI, you have no student loans. How much more of a home can they qualify for, should they choose, obviously? Right. It's a great loan product. It's a fantastic loan product. What we find, though, is that most veterans they don't know what they don't know. And, even one of your team members told me that her brother just joined the military or the Marines, and he didn't know what a VA loan was. Mm-hmm. I mean, that just blows my mind. And it's like, how can you not? So I think it's our job, doing what we do, to get out there and educate those folks of what they can do and what their rights are.
And a lot of the people that I've talked to who were eligible for the VA loan that didn't think they were people who never served in active combat, because that's one of the misconceptions as well.
Right. So like a reserve member. Yep. And so obviously with a reserve member, there's a point statement that goes into effect so that they can get their COE or certificate of eligibility. And that's another thing we see just time and time again, is that, so many veterans are coming to us in the fourth hour where they've been to other institutions and they don't even have a viable COE, or it wasn't even pulled. And in my opinion, if you're working with a veteran borrower, that pulling the credit report is equally is important at the same time to pull that COA, just tell them, hey, here's your eligibility. Because sometimes you have to send additional documentation into the VA.
Right.
Especially a lot of times more in the cases of reserve members, you have to send in their statement of service and their point statement. So to get that certificate of eligibility. But the VA, I think, has done some things that are going to change that so it doesn't hurt as many veterans as it has in the past. For instance, you can't order an appraisal anymore without a valid COE. So at least you don't get 3 weeks into it after an appraisal's been ordered.
And financially invested.
Yeah. And then you don't have a viable deal. So
that would be heartbreaking. And I can see the potential of that happening with some other lenders. Yeah,
it happens all the time. Actually, Angela Rose, who's my top originator that works for me, we had a borrower that it blew up at the last minute last month with a local credit union. And they didn't talk to him about closing costs. They didn't talk to him about prepaids. They had no idea they even had to come to the table with money. And a week prior to closing, they let this explode. And this gentleman's PTSD was so bad he had to be checked into the hospital. So I picked it up, and as you know, our motto is never quit. Benchmark never quits. And so we picked that up, and I told them we'll pay for everything. And we closed that loan, and we did it in 11 days.
That's amazing. And I'm actually going to go back to where you just said, the veteran didn't realize that they had some out-of-pocket expenses and cost. And I'm going to tell you from experience, myself as a real estate agent, I would say 85% of the buyers that I sit down at a table with and have my initial buyer's consultation, if they've never bought a home before, they are absolutely clueless that they have out-of-pocket expenses. And unfortunately, a lot of mortgage institutions rely on the real estate agent to tell them that, when the real estate agent would assume that would be something that the mortgage company would reiterate to them because it's a cost of the mortgage.
Yeah.
So I always go through that myself when I have my buyer's consultation. I'll say, okay, well, you've worked with this, you're already pre-approved with this lender. Obviously, it's not you because you would have schooled them, but you're working with this lender. Have they discussed these issues with you? Because I like to put out smoke. I don't like to put out fire.
Right.
And again, I'd say a good 85% don't realize that you have some fees. You have earnest money, you have inspection cost, and then you have your closing cost.
Yeah.
Then we work together from the real estate perspective and the lending perspective with the sellers to try to help cover some of those things for you.
Right.
But it's good to know upfront what you need. And if you have a good team around you, you won't get 3 to 4 weeks into a transaction and panic going, how am I going to come up with $5,000, $10,000 to close on a loan.
Right. Yeah. Just unrealistic expectations not ever set by those folks. And so that's why, again, we try and do these seminars. We try to do different things that we can to educate the borrowers as well as our real estate community.
Right.
I also, I'm an instructor for Military Mortgage Boot Camp, which is the largest, educational provider there for real estate agents, builders, realtors, CPAs, and we teach 3-hour classes that help give CE credit. So,
do I have 2 push-ups if I attend?
Right, 2. Only 2. 22. Okay. We'll do it for 22.
22. Yeah. 22 push-ups. I'm there.
Yeah.
I might have to do the girl ones, but I'll attempt it.
But yeah, so because even in our business, it blows me away that our own colleagues don't understand the product. Like, how can you be in this industry and not understand your trade? And so what kind of fiduciary responsibility are you doing to your seller? I mean, I've started seminars and asked agents where, show of hands in the room, if you had someone that gave you a cash offer and you had a veteran that gave you $10,000 more, what offer would you take? And 80% of the room is going to raise their hand and say cash offer. Now, what kind of fiduciary responsibility is that to your seller when so you could have gotten your seller $10,000 more?
Right.
It's
no, it is. And I've experienced it myself with offers not being accepted because they were VA. Mm-hmm. And, it's because of lack of education.
Yeah. And then there's, so there's always those myth-conceptions of.
I like that, myth-conceptions. Yeah. I love that. I'm gonna use that.
Of like, oh, hey, the veteran has to pay the buyer or the sellers, or the seller has to pay the veteran's closing fee. That's not true.
No.
Or the veteran has to pay the termite fee, or not the veteran, but the seller rather has to pay the termite fee. Both of those are not true. And so unfortunately, because of over the years of how VA loans have been done, that stigma has become in that. On the west side of the state here, the purchase agreement actually says it. It's incorrect. The verbiage of the purchase agreement is actually incorrect. So I've trained agents that I work with, let's cross this off, initial it, and then put it on page 5 or 6, letting them know, once again, your seller will not pay for this fee or this fee, right? But it's that misconception that they have to. And unfortunately is extremely, then we get a veteran that doesn't get a home.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Just want to take a break into action to say thank you for watching KNE Realty 360. And while you're here, please take a minute to like and subscribe below for more episodes of other fantastic content produced by my amazing team. You can also follow us online via Facebook or Instagram at KNE Realty 360. Thank you, enjoy, and keep it real.
Now, my other pet peeve is appraisals. Right?
See, and I love the VA appraisal process.
Why wouldn't you?
And from a listing agent perspective or a buyer's agent perspective, they give you opportunities that no other loan program gives you.
Right.
It's amazing.
Any other loan program, you don't have the ability to change the value once the appraisal is done.
Right.
Right. And so many people don't know what Tidewater is. I mean, I had a real estate agent.
I've talked to agents who I've been in the business 20 years.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That I've closed 5 deals a year for the past 20 years. No.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Not know what a Tidewater is.
I got a one a couple of months ago where it was like, excuse me, young man, I've been in this business 19 years, and I was honored that she called me a young man, but and she said, "There's no water in the basement," and I said, "Well, okay, so you haven't been through a Tidewater." So
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So obviously Tidewater, as you well know, might as well tell our listeners, right? Tidewater is the first opportunity within the appraisal, because the appraisal is not issued to us as a lender. It's just triggered that, hey, we don't believe we can get to value. Mm-hmm. So
it's like a preemptive measure.
Yeah. So get us your 3 best comparables within a grid comparison that we can send to them within 48 hours to give them the opportunity. Now, this year, I've won more Tidewaters than I've lost.
So have I.
Right. And that's an awesome opportunity. Would you get that with any other loan program?
No.
Okay, so then you have another opportunity, as we well know, after it goes through Tidewater. If we still believe that it's an opportunity to get more value, we can go through what they call the reconsideration of value, or the ROV, which allows us to increase the value one more time. So to say that the VA appraisal is a bad appraisal, that would come from someone that does not know the VA loan product.
Right, or doesn't do enough business to understand any product.
That would be, yeah.
I'm a little blunt. So.
Yeah, very, very.
And a little bitter. Seriously, being out on the road, in the streets, boots on the ground, working with my clients, as an agent, that's very frustrating. Agent to agent, lack of communication and lack of knowledge, which I'm glad that we have you around now, because you're actually helping educate the seller's agent when it comes to our offers being placed. You want to explain some of the things that you do to help advocate for the buyers?
Yeah, I mean, I call the listing agent right away, and I go through, obviously things that aren't disclosing too much information about our borrower because of our rules and regulations. Right. But we also have a unique pre-approval letter that, those statistics that we shared with at the very beginning are on that pre-approval letter. Right. And I go step by step with that listing agent to ensure that, hey, here's where we're at. Our average close time for a VA loan has been 23 days or less this year. And you can call me anytime. Now, I call every listing agent on any deal that I get, but specifically our veterans, and I go over like, hey, look, they're not gonna have to pay this fee. They're not gonna have to pay this fee. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call. 99% of the time, I find that the listing agent is like blown away that I even called.
For sure. Because most lenders won't.
Right. And so it's kind of, a little bit of my secret sauce. Like I get other listing agents after we're done, like, wow, do you do this with every client? Absolutely. We do it with every client, specifically our veterans. So, and maybe I spend time going through with, do you understand Tidewater and ROV, and do you understand the VA appraisal? Because I know there's a lot of misconceptions against us, right? So I think that it dramatically helps push that offer through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I find even with property conditions, the VA's not as scary as what a lot of people think. They essentially just want somebody to be able to move into a home that's safe.
Yeah, so that
without safety hazards or environmental hazards.
Right. Yeah. So we call it health and safety. Right.
Yeah.
But the problem that I find as a lender that most agents in our marketplace is that they think that VA is FHA.
Right.
Or
no,
VA
FHA is actually a little harder.
Yes, FHA and USDA are more difficult. But the stigma is that VA is the toughest, and it's not.
No. And
the flexibility that you have with the borrower, like for instance, let's take a borrower that just got that's been in school or and they just get a contract. A lot of the times, those type of loan products, especially like with FHA, you have to have 30 true days of paycheck stubs, right? So that could be 5 weeks or 6 weeks, right? If you have true 30 days. With VA, as long as you have a contract, VA will allow that buyer to close on a house right now, even if they've never gotten a paycheck. But if they have their offer letter with a start date, that's a doable deal.
And it's huge because a lot of the veterans that we have purchasing homes are relocating, or
Exactly.
they're either PCSing, relocating, or coming back home.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not usually just moving from one city to another city.
Right.
I mean, it happens, but the majority are making major life moves.
Yeah, huge life moves. And one of the other things with Benchmark specifically, we don't have overlays with our VA.
Can you explain to the normal person what an overlay is?
So an overlay would be like, listen, once it's run through what it's called an automated approval system, other banking institutions, credit unions, whatever it might be, might say, hey, we're willing to lend, but we're not going to go over an income to debt ratio of 45%, meaning what your debt is and what your new housing expense will be. They just won't do it. Or they'll say, you know what, we want to make sure that veteran has had a job for 6 months. Those are overlays, right? And so if that automated approval decision that's printed out doesn't state anything about that, we're going to do that deal.
So when you issue a pre-approval letter, do you know what overlays are going to be applied to that particular borrower? Or is it...
We don't have any, so...
Well, yeah, you just said that. So let me go back. So when you do a pre-approval letter...
Yeah.
Have they already been desktop underwritten? Have you verified all their information?
Yeah.
So when you're issuing a pre-approval letter, you're pretty
It's solid.
It's a rock solid transaction.
Yeah. And I got a lot of agents, I don't say a lot, but there are agents that won't work with me because when they call me, they want a pre-approval letter right now.
Yeah.
And, as you well know, my letters, and especially people look at my letters and go, I know this deal's going to get done.
Right.
So I want my name associated with this deal's going to get done. And so if an agent isn't willing to wait 2 days for that borrower to upload their documentation to me so that I can get because a lot of people don't know what they make. They'll type out an application and, it's, we had one with Ryan where they, the wife put 2 times the borrower's income on the application, right? And then we get this and I'm like, wow, this is not what this gentleman makes. Right. So it doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. And so that's why we go to that next level of saying, hey, I need income and assets at least in order to look at a borrower and go, hey, look at income to debt ratio is good. We've run it through an automated model.
You've already pulled their credit.
Credit's pulled. We've pulled their COE.
Exactly.
Right.
We know we can get that. And you can help. So that's not something that the veteran necessarily has to have in hand. You can help them obtain that, correct?
Absolutely. They can actually go to my website and obtain one, even if they're just curious, which is vaguruguy.com.
Okay.
No, we pull it immediately for them. So, one of the things is that you would not believe how many veterans, and for that matter, other borrowers I talk to, when they say, well, ABC Bank got me approved for this. And I'll say, did you send your tax returns and paycheck stubs and bank statements and things like that? Well, no, I haven't. Well,
how do they verify anything?
Right. How, I hate to be the bearer potentially of bad news, but that pre-approval is worthless.
Right. Again, putting out smoke versus fires.
Yeah.
Why get yourself emotionally attached to the idea of owning a home or financially invested into buying a home with inspections and appraisals only to have it blow up because the person that you're working with didn't take some preemptive steps?
Exactly. Yeah. And unfortunately the worst part of it all is beyond us, losing as a deal is that we have veterans that no longer have homes.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that we're really pushing to be a part of is to be that first option, right? And the veteran coming to us first, because we get probably, I would say, about 63% of the veteran business that we get is deals that have blown up with other lenders.
Really?
And so then the problem becomes is how can you, but they couldn't. So then I have to sell them on why I can. And after they have just gone through the ringer, right? And so that's why we really do what we can do to push our name out in the community. Like, if you're going to do a VA loan, as you well know, you need to come to specialists like you and I.
And you help them become that specialist by doing the military boot camp.
Yeah, it's one of the ways. It's one of the ways. And we do a lot of other seminars, our VA 101 seminar, just
and that's to the consumer. That's to the actual veteran.
That's to the consumer, yeah. Teaching them that, hey, look, really, when someone buys a house, the only thing they think about is down payment, but you do have closing costs and you have escrow. So what does that mean? Well, okay, you're either going to come to the table with that, or Kristi's going to help you with the seller and getting a seller concession.
Now, I'm just going to ask you one more question, and then we'll tie things up, because I know you're a very, very busy guy, and I appreciate all the time that you've been in here.
Thank you for having me.
But when it comes to a client, say, because you did say, I forgot the statistic, it was over 20% though of veterans that are actually applying money down.
Correct.
Why would they choose to do a VA product versus doing a conventional or FHA? Are there any other benefits to it aside from the no PMI? Oh,
well, yeah. It depends. Let me put it this way. Yes, the PMI is huge, number one. Number two, for instance, let's say that veteran is entitled to any kind of disability benefits through the VA.
Sure.
So, if they have, 10% or more, then the VA funding fee is waived. Okay. So it's a huge, and let's face it, interest rates on a VA loan are better than that of a conventional loan.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think that's another misconception too. They think that, I don't have to put a down payment down, so they must be getting money somewhere else. No,
and again, it's all the way, with marketing, what people do to, misinform or inform the borrowers of the right way. So in my opinion, anybody that says that any other loan product's better than a VA loan, I would love to sit down with them and go math for math to show them why there's no other reason for a veteran to use their VA benefits.
And so I lied. I said one other thing. So I'm not asking you a question, but I'm going to remind everybody that this is a benefit that they can use over and over and over, because it's another myth conception. That we hear is, I've been saving it. There's nothing worse than me sitting there talking to somebody who's owned 2 or 3 homes and have spent thousands of dollars on private mortgage insurance that they didn't need to because they were waiting to use their benefit for their forever home.
Right. And let's enlighten everybody too about property taxes. I'm sure you know, right? With now, you guys have told me some really awesome stories, but if a veteran has 100% disability through the VA, and every municipality that I know of, and unless somebody wants to correct me wrong, in the state of Michigan, they're going to not have to pay property taxes.
Correct.
So that's huge. That's absolutely huge. Now, you guys said you've gotten a couple through that where they're at 70 and 80%.
70 and 80% as long as they were unable to work.
Yeah.
Because you can be unable to work without being 100%.
And people wouldn't believe how many veterans there are like that in our community.
Right.
Right. And again, they just don't know what they don't know. So hopefully this helps.
And that's why you need a good team.
That's right. Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for coming out here. You want to give your website address if anybody else has questions? I know you dropped it down one other time, but why don't you give them your web address? And
our web address is vaguruguy.com.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you coming out today.
You bet.
Thanks.
Bye.